What will be the climax of this story? Will the protagonist successfully find and confront the mastermind behind? Or what kind of development will there be in the relationship between the protagonist and her suspected mate? Or can the protagonist get rid of this series of dangers and difficulties? Dive into a world of werewolves and witches. Subscribe now. Chapter 1, My Life Mistress. Alpha Caden sent words of a crowning ceremony for his new Luna. He wants you to perform the rites, Fia said, bowing her head slightly. I was never used to her display of respect, and even till now I still wasn't. But Fia idolized me. She was an orphan I had picked up at age 5 in the woods almost 18 years ago. Her parents had been slaughtered by rogues on unclaimed territory. They were most likely traveling somewhere or escaping from something or somewhere, but I could never know. It was not in my fate to know, yet she appeared slightly older than I am. The curse of youthfulness glaring at me in the face. The moon goddess' prophecy was right after all. When is she ever wrong? I smiled at my handmaiden, but deep down I felt slightly conceited. I served the moon goddess, but I had conflicted feelings about her, of why she had deemed my kind and worthy of ever getting a mate. When does he plan on holding the ceremony? I asked. In 3 days' time. Should I prepare for the trip? She asks. Yes. Of course, I replied as I rose from my mattress. I stepped outside my tent and walked towards the cliff behind my abode. The scenery was beautiful as ever, and it always brought serenity to my soul. It was a place I would meditate. I would sit here almost very night, gazing at the sky and the moonlight, gazing at the figure of the moon goddess staring at me. She was always silent. Always. Unless she wanted me to know something. But she would not speak even. She would show me, sometimes in pieces. Sometimes she would make it all clear. I was her instrument, but I was never to fall in love. She had not deemed me or my kind and worthy of having a mate because my kind was incomplete and a part of our soul belonged to a magic that was different from hers. But that magic was how we were able to communicate. And that was how I had visions from her, but I was still unable to get a werewolf mate. I have walked the earth for almost 500 years. I have seen werewolves and other mystical creatures rise and fall. I have been frozen in time. I am partly a werewolf and partly a witch. I was a freak of nature, a child that causes imbalance. But I was not the only one of my kind, that we were not much out there. A werewolf and a witch mating was never meant to result into an offspring, but there were anomalies, a crack in the way of things that resulted into my kind. I live in the forest with Fia, my handmaiden. I could not fit in with the witches. I wasn't a pure blood in the werewolf packs, and the old times couldn't me either, as I could never be fully trusted. Times have changed, but I have gotten used to staying in the forest, walking alone most of the times. There were good companions along the way, but they all died when their time was up, leaving me alone. Thea is my 10th companion after 100 years. I could have chosen to die. Countless of times I have tried, but failed every single time because I would wake up like everything that had happened was just a dream. I have given up. Witches were not always like this. We were not immortals, but everything changed over 3,000 years ago, when all the witches were killed. But one witch survived, named Greta, and she bonded her soul to that of a vampire. She gained his immortality without having the thirst for human blood, but then there was a cost. If the vampire dies, she would die, but the witch grew greedy. She wanted the immortality without that leverage. So she performed ancient magic and transferred the vampire life source to hers, and the vampire died. Then the children she brought forth gained the immortality from her. But every magic comes with a price. We can still be killed only with a dagger made from a special argentium stain with the vampire blood. The same one the first witch used to slaughter the vampire. But that dagger was somewhat lost, and most witches simply believe that it never existed to begin with. I am not totally immortal, but I can't die from regular stunts. At least until it is time. That is the worst of my curse. I will die one day, but I would never know. It might be hundreds, thousands. It was still unknown, but the dagger plunged into the center of the neck would kill me in an instant. Even if my neck was cut off with a regular blade, I will be whole again in minutes. There were not many pure blood witches, but they existed. Rita was not actually the last. A few escaped and survived, and Greta taught them the way to immortality, but pure-blood witches are only born when both parents are witches. I am not a pure-blood, but my father was one. I have never met him, nor do I know him, but I know. I miss the old times. I miss my mother, Ingrid. She was a werewolf, and she was raped by a wizard a week before she found her mate. She was rejected when her mate found out that she had lost her virtue, and she was ostracized and shunned by her pack and family. She raised me alone despite the criticism from her pack and parents, and when she realized my true nature, of my immortality, she fled with me out of her pack and we hid in the forest together. She died when her time was right. She left me, but I knew that she did not want to. I knew that she loved me. Mistress Frida, I have packed our bags for the trip. It would take us almost 3 days' time to reach there if we leave this evening, Fia said, standing a few feet from where I stood. The breeze fanned my long blonde hair, setting my body into calmness. I sighed. Then we shall leave this night. We will be there in time. Fia, you should pack more of your clothes. Why, mistress? She asked, sounding confused. I turned to face her. I smiled at her widely. You have grown so much, Fia. You have reached and passed the age for your fate to take place. You are 23 years of age. A beautiful woman, to I say, but she still looked confused and almost naive. Maybe I have shielded her from the world too much. I do not understand, mistress, she responded. I smiled weakly. You should have been mated years ago. Our journey right now might take you to your mate, I explained. Her expression changed to a sad one, and it broke my heart. I have closed her off to the world too much that she has forgotten that she has a fate of her own. Did the moon goddess reveal anything to you? What if I am mateless like you? Her voice sounded broken. No, the moon goddess has not revealed anything because there is no need to. It is just the werewolf way of life. You cannot be mateless like me, I said. I walked closer to her and carried her cheeks. You have been like a daughter and a sister to me, and I cherish you and your happiness. That is why I have to let you go. Tears rolled down her rosy red cheeks and the wind threw her raven hair around. I do not wish to leave you, mistress. You are my mother, she cried, and it broke my heart. I thank you for seeing me that way, my dear Fia. But this is the right thing to do. I will always be with you. No matter where you are. I comforted and wiped her face. She kissed my palm. If I do not find my mate on this journey, would you allow me return with you? She asked. I wanted to reject her proposition. Even if she does not find her mate in Alpha Caden's pack, she should journey around the packs to find him. But instead, I say of course, but it would not be for long. We will journey out to find him. You would journey with me? She asks. I would, I responded swiftly. If I find him, would you stay with me? Can you think of staying with me? She pleaded desperately. Fia was trying to make things difficult. She knew what my answer would be. She knew the truth. She knew that I cannot stay in a pack. I never could because I don't know how to, and my mission with the moon goddess deems me incapable of staying in one pack. I will get ready now. You should do the same. That was my response, and I walked away, leaving her. Okay, mistress, I hear her mumble. We finally arrived at Blood Sun Pack by afternoon of the Luna binding ritual. As usual, we gained a few stairs, starting from the pack warriors at the pack border down to the pack members around the pack. I looked different. We dressed different, and they knew who I was. You are here, Priestess James. The beta of the pack greeted me with a bow. He met us halfway on the field in the pack. Yes, I am. Has Alpha Caden been reported to about my appearance? I asked. Yes, he has been informed. He has instructed me to take care of you before the ceremony begins this evening, James responded. Very well. Where do I and my companions stay before the ceremony? I asked. I was always direct to people. I had not made much contact with people except when I was sent by the moon goddess or when my help was needed. Follow me, Priestess James said as he walked towards a big building that appeared to be the pack house, and we followed along. I could sense via tense spirit she was worried. She was frightened about the finding her mate, and every male scent consumed her. I held her hand and spared her a comfort glance, and she eased up immediately. James directed us to our room where we would relax before the mate dance that would happen in 5 or 6 hours' time, and he excused himself. Would you be needing anything, mistress? Fia asks as soon as James was out of our presence. I am good, Fia. There is food already in the room. There is still time before I have to get ready for ceremony. You should rest instead, Fia, I said calmly. I should. Mistress Fia bowed and sat on the bed. I am aware that her mind was clouded. If she had grown up in a pack, she would have been mated by now. She would have grown up anticipating her mate. She would have grown up wanting her mate, but now she was frightened because she had grown up with me and all she was used to was loneliness, and she feels that it is the way of life, at least our life. I did not choose loneliness. Loneliness had simply chosen me. This was my life, but it was not her life. She was not born to be alone. Though she lacked her true origin, there was someone out there for her. Her perfect half. The evening soon came and Fia helped me with my dressing. She had worn me a green flowing long-sleeved long dress that exposed my thighs slightly, the green color signifying that my soul served the earth, and she then helped me with my face, painting it in blue and silver paint to signify the presence of the moon goddess. She brushed through my platinum blonde and let it cascade down to my buttocks. And I was ready. I walked out of the room and she tailed after me, dressed in a simple blue dress. Very conservative. She was always a simple girl. I walked to the field led by Beta James. There were already pack members seated and the field was well but moderately decorated. I finally see Alpha Caden standing in the podium they had set up. I feel his mighty aura envelop me as I walked up to him, a reminder that he was born for greatness. I am thankful to you, Priestess, for helping me perform the Luna binding ritual, Alpha Caden greeted. He spared a glance at Fia, whom gaze was directed to the ground. The moon goddess will, I responded swiftly. We shall begin now, I added. Of course, he responded and signaled for the drums. The drums began to play and I feel her. The goddess. The moon was brighter. She has chosen to witness the ceremony. Finally, after a swift drumming routine, the Luna comes in. She looks tense, but she was beautiful. The Alpha meets her halfway and takes her hand as per the rites. She hesitated at first and it confused me, but I sense it. A cup in her womb. The Alpha is unaware of this, but this Luna knows. She finally accepted her mate hand and they walk up to me. I finally get a good view of her. I see through her soul and the moon goddess opens my eyes. I see her life, her suffering, the death surrounding her, her father's madness, only he was not mad. He had been plagued. This is a forbidden magic of old. I don't say anything for now. The time is not right. The binding ritual must continue. You two are a fated pair, I said truthfully. They were destined for each other. Their fate are tied from circumstances. The moon goddess favored them with a second chance. It is very uncommon, a second chance you have been given, Alpha Caden. The goddess favors you, I added, but she does not favor me. I thought. The Luna stares at our mate, a bit unsure of the whole ritual, but our mate calms her. I feel all their emotions inside me. I turn away and grab a knife in a bowl placed on a stool. Fia was standing at the back off. Her gaze was now on me. I know she is intrigued by the settings in the pack. It was her first time for witnessing something like this. I face the couple again and say, your Alpha is the link connecting the pack. You drink his blood, you become his member. With your mate bond in place, you become his Luna, I explained as I grabbed Alpha Caden right palm and slice along it enough for it to bleed. He does not flinch from the cut. This is of no pain to him. I grab his hand and let the blood drip into the bowl. I turn my attention away from the couple to the pack members and shout at the top of my voice, do you accept her as your Luna? I ask. Yes, we accept. They chorused. I lifted the bowl to the sky for the goddess to acknowledge. Her spirit fills me and I utter her mystical words of a language I know not of, and when I feel her acknowledge the blood, I give the bowl to the female, drink it. I ordered and she takes the bowl from my hand into her mouth and drank of the bowl. She feels the surge of energy fill her body immediately as she finishes the content, and fortunately for her, her mate was there to hold her in time before she fell to the ground from the overwhelming power. It is done, I declared, and immediately the pack members clapped and howled in excitement. And just like that, the moon goddess leaves the ceremony. Members of blood, send to hold your Luna. Luna, Louisiana. Alpha Caden announced, and the crowd erupted in howls and cheers. When the howling and cheering died down, a shrieking sound came forth from an unknown source. Next was a scream. The pack members stood up immediately in confusion, and the commotion brewed. Alpha Caden was scanning the area looking for the source of the commotion, but I already sensed the vile presence. And then a young redhead female appeared screaming. She falls to the ground of the aisle holding her head as if she was in pain as her bones began to break and deform in several ways. She was shifting like a plagued wolf, just like the Luna dead father did in my vision. She snarls at the Luna, and I know this plagued wolf was sent to destroy the Luna, but I don't see who is behind her. This plagued wolf is masked by a witch like myself. If this wolf get to the Luna, she would lose the pup in her womb. She might survive, but the child would not. Stop her. She is plagued. I screamed at the top of my voice. Chapter 2: The Plagued Wolf. As expected, the Alpha was quick to act, transforming to his wolf form immediately and lunging at the plagued wolf that was already a few feet from crashing into Louisiana. I wanted to conjure my magic, but there was no need to. The Alpha was incredibly fast. His aura was stronger than any Alpha that I have met. He was quick to tackle her down and ripped out the flesh in her neck. The plagued wolf screamed out in pain from the huge hole in her neck. Her body jerked like she was going into shock, and she shifted back immediately trying to heal. But it was too late. This wolf was plagued, but it has not had the time to full immense into it. That wound would be enough to kill her. Blood was gushing out of her neck where a large chunk of skin had been removed, and she was still jerking. She was choking on her blood and she was dying, but the Alpha and his pack warriors were still at alert, circling her and preparing themselves just in case she decides to stand up again, but it was of no need. This plagued wolf was already dying. She was breathing her last, but she manages to say I was poisoned. I am sorry, and that was the plagued wolf was dead and her soul departed. It has been hundreds of years since I last witnessed a plagued wolf. It was a forbidden magic, and even though this plagued wolf was dead, our body could still be manipulated. She would have to be set on fire or her head would be removed from her body to prevent that from happening. But they need to know the gravity of this incident. Alpha, you need to be careful. I have seen this before. I warned. When a regular wolf is plagued, they become as strong as an Alpha, and if an Alpha becomes plagued, it is 10 times worse. A plagued Alpha can wipe out a whole pack, and he is the only one that can plague another without the witch elixir. He was comforting his mate, but was still reeling in the shock that her life had just been threatened. He turns his attention to me. What is this? He asked. A magic of the old. In the past, there was a priestess that abandoned the true ways and she sought power. She sought to control the wolves for her bidding, and then she created an elixir. A dangerous one. The result of the elixir is what you witness today. It makes werewolves lose control and they become plagued. They run feral, and that I explained. It was much worse than that, but this was the basic. The best way to stop a plagued wolf is to kill the witch behind it. But a werewolf would not be able to kill a witch just like that, especially one strong enough to make a plagued wolf. My father, Louisiana, says. I knew what she wanted to ask, so I cut her off before she could complete her words. He was plagued, I revealed, and her eyes widens in shock as my word sets into her mind. I saw your life doing the ritual. I saw your pain and the shame you endured. Your mother's death did not make your father kill Freya. He was manipulated to kill her, but why? She asks as tears threaten to spill from her eyes. I feel her soul crushed from the revelation of the truth. The Alpha was curious as well. He had his jaw clenched. His first mate had suffered a terrible fate because of his present mate father, and he had been manipulated all the while. Beta Darius and Luna Freya shared a painful fate. That I do not know, I answered. The moon goddess has not shown me who was behind all this, but I am certain that it was a witch like myself, or even stronger. The truth will reveal itself. But tired and ready, I added, and I bowed before I left. Thea trailed after me immediately. I walked towards the direction of where the plagued wolf had been taken to. The wolf was still dangerous. I finally stopped in the pack clinic and walked through the doors. I followed the stench of the dead wolf and I found her lying lifeless on a table. Priestess. The woman in a doctor coat exclaimed, startled by my appearance. She bows when she regains herself, and I acknowledge her with a nod. My name is Hannah. I am the pet doctor. How can I help you? She added. I just need to check the body, then I will be gone, I responded. She nodded in acknowledgement. I walked over to the body and placed my hand on her forehead. hoping to decipher the truth of the force behind the plague wolf. I closed my eyes to concentrate and let my magic fill my body. I need to see who was behind this plagued wolf. I let my magic soar around me and take over my body was when it has completely filled me. My spirit is pulled into a dark, eerie forest. Immediately a shiver runs down my spine as coldness filled my body. I know that this is a vision, but this was at the same time it was real. If anything happens here, there would be damage in the real world. The air is heavy with an eerie stillness, and a thick blanket of darkness envelops the surroundings. The canopy of towering trees stretches endlessly above, their branches and wind like gnarled fingers, blocking out the feeble rays of sunlight that struggle to penetrate through. The forest floor is a labyrinth of decaying leaves and tangled undergrowth, each step accompanied by a soft crunch and rustle. Shadows dance and flicker, playing tricks on my mind, as if the very essence of the forest is alive and watching my every move. The silence is broken only by distant whispers carried on the wind, leaving me with a sense that I am not alone. If the plagued woman body was pulling me into her but into this darkness, then the person behind her must not want me to know who he or she was. Shafts of moonlight occasionally pierce through gaps in the dense foliage, casting eerie beams that illuminate patches of moss, covered rocks, and gnarled tree trunks. The moss, a sickly shade of green, clings to the trees like a suffocating embrace, as if nature itself is reclaiming this forgotten realm. I sense the atmosphere heavy with an ancient magic that seems to seep from the very roots of the forest, but I could not understand it. This magic was powerful. I did not think a single witch would be able to conjure this type of magic, a magic that created a dark oblivion. Who are you? I screamed. My words bounces back like an echo. This forest made me sick and lightheaded. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to dig so fast, but it was necessary. Plagued wolves were not used unless the person meant to cause a great disaster. If someone had already sent one to attack Luna, and then they would do it again. But there was a feeling inside me that things was deeper than it seems. I feel a dark shadow fly past me and I almost stumble to the ground for the heaviness of the magic on me. Show yourself, I screamed, releasing my magic into the forest. Suddenly, from the depths of the mist, emerged a ghostly figure. Its form was pale and translucent, wisps of ethereal energy swirling within its insubstantial frame. It moved with a haunting grace, gliding effortless the ground, never quite touching the earth. As the apparition drew nearer, I could discern its features in the dim light. Its eyes, sunken and hollow, burned with a malevolent intensity, as if reflecting the tormented soul trapped within. Jagged, spectral tendrils extended from its form, resembling tattered remnants of a long-forgotten shroud. Without warning, the ghostly creature let out a blood-curdling scream. The sound pierced the stillness of the night, jolting me to my core. The sheer force of its cry was overwhelming, causing my head to spin and my legs to buckle beneath me. I crumpled to the ground immediately, disoriented and filled with dread and drain of my magic. This was far greater than I expected. This was definitely not done by a single witch, but it was too late to lament. I had to get out from here. The creature's scream echoed through the air, resonating with a haunting resonance. Its voice carried the weight of sorrow, pain, and anguish, as if it were the collective wails of countless lost souls. The very sound seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, shaking the very foundation of my being. I have never felt so weak since the longest time I can remember. As I lay on the ground, paralyzed by fear and confusion, the ghostly creature hovered above me. Its eyes bore into mine, penetrating my soul with an unrelenting gaze. I could sense its malevolence, the darkness that consumed it, and the hunger for release or vengeance that drove it. In that moment, for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair, as if all hope had been drained from the world. More ghostly figures appeared from the darkness, holding me captive. I struggled against their hold as I felt more magic drain out of me. "Let me go. Let me go." I screamed violently and I continued to drag my body against their hold. I have to get out of here before this darkness consumes me completely. I summon my strength and let out a howling scream. I feel the forces from my voice. The vibrations of my sound should have sent them away and pulled me out, but it does not work. The dark creatures continue to feast on my magic, and when I feel myself slipping into darkness, I felt a touch on my arm and a voice. Come back. A male voice resonates in the darkness of the forest, and just like that I was pulled out. I gasped for air, struggling to breath like as if I had been submerged into water for long. My vision was a little blurry, but I know that I was back at the clinic. My legs were shaky and were about to give up when a rough hand held me, helping me gain stamina. My vision was already clearing up and my strength was already coming back to me. I stared at the plagued woman's dead body and another shiver ran down my spine. It was so pitiful, but this woman was only used as a pawn to dark forces. I fear that the magic is stronger than mine. Mistress. The voice cut me off guard. I snapped my head in her direction and I realized that she has been crying. I am fine, Fia, I say, trying to comfort her. She has never seen me in this state. Weakened, almost drained. Your nose, you are bleeding, mistress, she cried. I should check on you, the pack doctor said with a concerned look on her face. I immediately brought my hand to my nose. I did not realize that I was bleeding. I stared at the blood that was now on my fingers. I feel lightheaded again and my feet were giving way under me, and this time I thought I would touch the ground, but I didn't again. The hand that I caught me did once more. Mistress, Fia yelled, clasping her mouth with her hands. She looked completely frightened. She and the pack doctor rushed over to my side. Who then was holding me steady? I lifted my head and turned slightly to get a good look in there. He was staring at me with a concerned look on his face. His blue orbs pierced into me and I feel it. The tingles. The bond I sense between mates. Only this time. This bond was for me. It couldn't be possible. My eyes widened in shock. What is the meaning of all this? I was completely and utterly stunned. And as if confirming my suspicions, I heard the one word that completely shook my world come out of his lips, mate. Chapter 3, A Ploy of the Moon Goddess. This has to be a sick joke. It was not possible for me to get a mate. My kind did not ever get a mate. That was all part of our curse. But here I was feeling this bond for this stranger. Why was I feeling this type of bond for this stranger? Who are you? I asked the strange man holding me. He stared at me a bit confused at my question. Or maybe confused at the entire thing that was happening. I was confused as well. Who was doing this? Was it because of vision from the plagued wolf, or could this be a ploy of the moon goddess? Without waiting for his response, I created distance between us. I do not understand anything yet, and I will not welcome it at the moment. But the moment I separated from him, it felt like my skin touched fire from the separation I had created. Mistress. I do not understand. I thought this was impossible for you, Fia said, but I could hear the excitement in her voice. This was like a dream come true for her. She had always hoped for this possibility. What do you mean by it is not possible? My mate asked. I could sense the confusion grow inside of him the more. That would make two of us. Priestess? I do not understand. Reed, are you sure? The pack doctor, Hannah said. He turned her gaze to my supposed mate. They appeared to me well acquainted. So his name is Reed. I would have known if my magic has been fully restored. My body would need rest. I will need to incorporate myself to the earth and to the moon to restore myself fully. Do you think I would not know my own mate's sister? Reed gritted through his teeth. She is the priestess, Reed. Everyone knows her origins, the pack doctor stated. I was a bit taken aback. Sister. I had no idea that Hannah was related to this Reed of my supposed mate. I now wished badly to have been able to look into their past, but I was too weak at the moment, and if I was not to beginning with, the moon goddess might not allow me to peek into their past and their future as well. I don't know why she does it, but she does. There are some werewolves mine that were protected by her. It was a magic that I have not been able to fight against. I will take my leave now, I announced. This whole feeling had to be from the vision from the plagued wolf. It must be an after effect, but I do not have to stay here and witness an argument. I am too aged to stay and listen to these two relations bantering with each other. I walked past the two siblings and grabbed a still perplexed Fia by her hand. We needed to get away from here and fast. I refuse to be entangled in this mess, and I need to find whosoever was behind the plague wolf. That witcher wizard was strong enough to wear me down like this, then no one would be safe. If she chooses to attack this pack with more plagued wolves. This was not the plan. It should not have gotten so complicated like this. It is so hilarious how I had expected Fia to find her mate in this pack, but now the unexpected has happened to me. If this turned out not to be a side effect from the dark vision, then it would be the moon goddess. But why would the moon goddess do this to me? What was her plan in all this? All these years that went by, and now she has chosen to grant me a mate. I should be happy, but I am not. I feel like this mate of mine would come at a price. And I am not going to lose anything of mine as of the moment. Fia and I were almost out of the door when a loud growl erupted from behind me. I knew exactly who made that growl. I paused and turned to face him. Was that meant to scare me, Reed? I gritted angrily. Has he forgotten who I truly am? He might be my mate or a big possibility, but he had no control of me. He had no experience, while I have lived through millions of experiences for 500 years of my existence. He was just a child. Reed's growl faded into a low rumble as his eyes bore into mine, his expression shifting from confusion to determination. I don't mean to scare you, Priestess, he said, his voice laced with a mix of frustration and defiance. But I won't let you walk away without understanding the truth. I scoffed, my patience wearing thin. The truth. Enlighten me then, O wise young wolf. What truth could possibly justify this absurd situation? Reed took a step closer, his tone firm. The truth is that the moon goddess has chosen us. Priestess, he said, his words carrying a weight of conviction. There's a reason you feel this connection, this bond. It's meant to be. I shook my head, a mixture of anger and disbelief bubbling within me. You know nothing of this young werewolf. You are only fascinated by finding a mate after waiting for so long. But I have seen bigger than just mate bond. I've seen it all. Reed. I've seen the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of power. And you expect me to believe that this mating bond is just a gift from the moon goddess? Reed's gaze held mine, unwavering. I do not think that this is a mistake, Priestess, he said, his voice steady. I've spent years preparing for this moment, for the day I would meet my mate. And now that I've found you, I won't let you turn away from what we could have. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. And what could we possibly have? Reed. You know nothing. You are being manipulated by the moon goddess. There is a plagued body on that bed that almost destroyed me, and you somehow pull me out, and we are somehow now magically bonded. I am over 500 years old, Reed. I am cursed to walk this earth alone, and you know that. Everyone knows my story. My world is bigger than yours. I yelled at the end. I did not think it was possible to have an outburst. I have never had one in my entire life, even when my mother passed away. Reed's eyes softened, his voice filled with genuine empathy. I understand your fears, Priestess, he said, his words laced with sincerity. But what if this bond is real? Would you not want to accept it? Accept happiness? I almost laughed, but I settled, shaking my head. My resolve was still unwavering. You are really a child, Reed. I won't allow myself to be consumed by this fantasy of a mate. I need to uncover the identity of the witch behind these plagued wolf. He or she pose a grave danger to this pack and to Luna, Louisiana, I reasoned. A part of me wanted to believe him, to believe that this bond could be real, but a bigger part of me did not want to dwell in this. If I encouraged this and it ends up being a fake, then I would be the most affected. Reed would find his real mate while I will remain the same, but this time with a broken heart. He looked broken, and I feel the pull in our bond forcing me to comfort me, but I stood my ground instead. I faced Fia and said, Fia, we have to leave now. We must find answers, I urged, my voice filled with determination. Thea nodded. I will do everything in my power to assist you. Mistress. We cannot let this darkness prevail. Reed took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper, but it held a great sorrow. I do not need my power to know that my words hurt him. Then let me prove you wrong, he said, his eyes pleading. Give me a chance. Let me accompany you on your journey, Reed. Hannah gasped. I stared at Reed and he really meant what he was saying. I cannot let you follow me. This bond will die soon and you need to be here to find your true mate, I stated boldly. A frown settled on his face. Did you see that in one of your visions? He asked. I. You cannot stop me. You are not sure of anything. I am coming. He cuts me off. He was quite adamant. It irked me deeply. Mistress. Thea called out. Her eyes was pleading with me. I had always wished for me to get a mate. And now she has gotten that wish, but if all this is a trick, I would be the only one affected. And they can't just see that. I did not respond. Instead, I walked out of the room and Thea tailed after me. Beta James, I will take my leave now, I said. We were all packed up. I could see Reed standing from a distance, his eyes hovering over me. There was a big backpack with him. He was truly going. Thank you, Priestess James, but I apologize for the accident that happened during the ritual, he bowed. It was meant to happen. I am glad that no one got hurt. I will help in finding who is responsible for the attack. I will inform you of any news, I said. He smiled lightly. We appreciate your help, Priestess, he responded. He turned his Thea behind me. Thank you for your help as well, he greeted. I realized that I had not introduced them, but I am certain he would have tried to find out about her. He was a beta after all, and that was part of his duty. Thank you for the hospitality, Beta James, Thea said softly and bowed to show her respect. The beta bowed once more and Thea and I took our leave. We walked towards the forest and I could already see Reed making his way towards us. You can go back now, I said strictly when he was few feet from us. I do not want him to come. If this is all a trick, he would mess with my time in finding out who was behind the plagued wolf. I choose to stay, he responded back with as much strength in his voice. I do not say anything else and just continue walking. I will just have to deal with it myself. Chapter 4, Just Like True Mates. Mistress, I think you should rest for a while, Thea suggested with a worried expression drawn on her face. I was sweating profusely and my body was weaker by each step I was taking. I was not regaining my strength like I thought I would. Reed had a frown on his face. He appeared to be frustrated and angry seeing me in this weakened state. We were in the forest making our way back to my tent and there was still a long distance ahead of us. I couldn't shift and I could not perform magic either. Whatever happened in that vision really affected my body. I was slowing everyone down and I felt incredibly horrible inside of me. I had never felt like this throughout my existence and it surprised me profoundly. Being weak was new to me and it frightened me a bit. Would I be able to fight against the witch behind the plagued wolf if I was so easily defeated? I had made a promise to help Alpha Caden in finding whoever was responsible. But Alpha Caden would not be able to easily defeat a witch without the help of a witch or someone that knows how to kill us or if he had possession of a dagger. But it would not be easy to get close to a strong witch on his own. I am fine, Thea, I lied effortlessly. I do not want them to worry about me, but I know they are. I was worried for myself as well. I stopped and rested my body against the bark of a tree in my attempt to try to catch my breath. You are not fine, Reed said, running his fingers through his hair in annoyance. I have never known a man to worry for my well-being. This was the first time and it made me feel something inside of me that I had never felt before, that I thought I would never feel in my entire existence. My eyes meets his and I feel my breath hitched as his eyes pierced intensely into mine. Something in me wanted him to pull me into his arms and carry me. That part of myself disliked the distance between us, but another part of me was happy that he was not so near me. I do not understand anything yet. I will rope myself in a web of deceit. It was barely hours since we discovered the possibility of both of us being mate. My sight was starting to turn blurry. My head feels lightheaded immediately and I know that I can't keep moving on, Thea. I called. She was holding me by my hands. I am here, mistress. Her voice broke like she was about to cry. I was not dying or something, but it touched me that Fia cares so deeply about me. She has never seen me in this state for as long as she had known me. But I sigh. I wanted to say something, but the darkness overwhelms me and I slip into it, welcoming it like a warm embrace. I moan, feeling a soft material under my body, and shimmers of sun rays pierce my skin. I open my eyes and realize that I was in my tent. How did I get here? All I could remember was the forest. I am quite aware that Fia would not have made it on her own. That would mean that Reed helping me back to my tent. It was already morning. I sat up immediately, feeling a slight headache, but I do not feel as weak as I was the previous night. My dress was different, and I know that Fia must have changed me. I stood up from my mattress and made my way outside. Fia was cooking something on the stove. She noticed my presence and she immediately got up. Mistress, you are awake. I think you should rest more. Do not worry, Fia. I am fine. I smiled at her. Are you sure? That was what you said last night, and you faded. I hear Reed's strong voice behind me. I immediately turned around. He was casually standing there, shirtless and unbothered. But his bare chest made me feel hot immediately, but I immediately shook it off. I noticed the herbs in his hands. I had no idea that he knew about herbs. His eyes met mine, and there was a mixture of relief and concern in his gaze. I couldn't help but feel a flutter of warmth in my chest at the sight of him. His presence seemed to infuse me with a renewed energy. I am fine, I said swiftly. He continued to stare at me. I feel self-conscious. Another thing I had never felt before. Reed was slowly affecting me in a strange way, just like true mates. Thank you for taking care of me, both of you. Reed approached me, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It is my duty to take care of you. Althea, we are mates, remember? I could feel his breath fanning my face, and somehow my body heats up. I immediately created a distance between us before I cleared my throat. We do not know that for sure, Reed. Don't get your hopes up, I sternly said. You looked hurt. You cannot deny that you do not feel the bond between us, he said. There are strong magic that can mask a werewolf bond. I don't think this bond is from the moon goddess, Reed. It is simply not possible, I responded, trying to see a reason with him, but somehow my words hurt me, and I know that it hurt him as well. I would be pleased if this bond was real, but I refused to keep my hopes up. I refused to be lured in by a wicked witch and get destroyed. Do not say that, Reed growled. The tension in the air was growing, and it felt like the atmosphere was about to burst open. It is the truth, I responded strongly, standing my ground. He wipes his face in frustration. I have no intention of hurting him, but I have no choice. Just because he was blinded, that does not mean that I would be blinded to reality as well. It is no fucking truth. Althea. Reed spat in annoyance. He walked over to Fia and dumped Thea and fixed her up, he added, and he walked back into the forest. I sighed as I watched his retreating figure. I turned to Fia. I will take my bathe now, I announced. Do you need me to help you? She asked, getting up from her stool. I will be fine. I will be down the lake, I responded back. But mistress, I should heat you water instead. The lake would be too cold for you, she suggested, but the coldness of the lake was what I needed right now. No, do not bother. I am fine, I said. Okay, mistress. I will prepare the herbs for you so that you can take it when you are done, she responded. Thank you, I answered back. As I approached the calm lake, I felt the cool breeze gently caress my skin. The warm sunlight dances across the water, creating a fascinating light and shadow effect. The air is filled with a symphony of nature's scents, delicate wildflowers and earthy scents. Eagerly, I slowly step into the refreshing embrace of the crystal-clear water. The first touch sent shivers of pleasure and coldness through my body and awakened the senses. The gentle waves of the lake lapped at my feet, inviting me to fully immerse myself in its embrace. I took a deep breath and savored the calm around me before diving below the surface. The upper world disappears as I slide weightless and free through the liquid realm. The water surrounded me, the coolness covering every inch of my skin. washing away the tension I was still feeling from the altercation with Reed. How can I bring him to understand the glaring truth staring at us in our face? How can I make him understand that I do not mean to push him away, but this bond between us was not real and he would later regret it? Time seems to stand still as I float on my back, gazing up at the vast expanse of the sky. The open horizon stretches before me, a canvas of blues and whites. The cares of the world almost melt away, leaving only a profound sense of peace and connection with nature. I can feel myself regaining my energy. The water was good for my magic. I cleaned my body with soap and dipped more into the water. Eventually, reluctantly, I emerged from the water, my body feeling alive and rejuvenated. Rivulets of water trickled down my skin, leaving a trail of coolness in their wake. I wrapped my body with a towel and another I was using to dry my hair. I paused abruptly when I felt hot air from my neck. I knew exactly who it was. The electrifying bond between us feels stronger as his body was close to mine. I remained rooted to the ground, unmoving. "What do you want, Reed?" I asked. He runs his fingers along my body as Reed's fingers trace along my body. A shiver of anticipation courses through me. I can feel the warmth of his touch seeping into my skin, igniting a fire within. With a gentle yet firm grip, he guides me closer to him, his breath caressing the nape of my neck. "I want you," he whispers huskily, his voice a velvety murmur that sends a delicious tingle down my spine. His words hang in the air, heavy with desire and longing. In that fleeting moment, time stands still. The world around us fades away, leaving only the pulsating energy between us. I turn to face Reed, my eyes locked with his, and I see the raw hunger mirrored in his gaze. It ignites a fierce desire within me, a yearning to lose myself in his touch. Without uttering another word, he pulls me closer. The towel that was in my hands fall to the ground and his hands then entwine with mine. Our bodies press against each other, every contour and curve fitting perfectly. The bond between us intensifies unexplainably. His lips find mine, and it felt like my insides exploded with raw emotions. The taste of desire mingles with the salt maze of the lake, creating an intoxicating blend that leaves me breathless. I don't know when the towel wrapped around my body slipped to the ground as well, but I was not bothered by my acquaintances. Reed's touch becomes bolder, his fingertips tracing a path of electric sensation across my damp skin. His hands caresses my back and my chest, and eventually he cups my breast. It was a struggle to hold back my moan. Every nerve ending comes alive under his caress, and I could not feel anything except him. He captures my lips more eagerly that I could not hold back the moan this time that I let it out. It releases my lips, then he says just a single word in the most sensual way possible that my insides flips beautiful. His touch softens, his hands cradling my face with tenderness. "I want you to know how deeply I love you," he murmurs, his voice filled with sincerity. "You are my everything." Tears well up in my eyes, mirroring the emotions that swirl within my heart. I reach out, tracing my fingers along his cheek, feeling the warmth and strength that radiates from him. "And you are mine," I whisper, my voice filled with equal fervor. Then I feel something shake me strongly. A jolt runs through me, and I jolt awake realizing that it was a dream. "Mistress, are you okay?" "You have been gone for a while now," Fia asked, a confused and worried expression on her face. "Why are you sleeping by the lake?" "I thought you wanted to have your bath." I did not know what to say. I was still trying to understand why I would have sensual dreams about Reed. The bond was stronger than I thought. I must still be tired. I thought I should rest a little. I finally managed to make words. "I wanted you to sleep more." "I will wait for you to bath. Your medicine is ready. You can take it and then have more rest," she replied. "Thank you, Fia," I simply responded. She smiled. She helped me to my feet and I sucked in a sharp breath as I spot Reed few feet away from us, staring right back at me. Chapter 5, Not a Dream. I can see that you are feeling so much better now. Voice came from behind me. I was few feet from the edge of the cliff, the same place where I would meditate on a regular basis. Yes, I am, I responded, but I did not turn to face him. It was already evening. After I had taken my bath, drank the herbs, and ate the meal Fia prepared, I had desperately tried to go back to sleep as she insisted that I rest more. But I couldn't. He somehow evaded my mind. My body was healing, and I could feel my magic being restored, yet I was not strong enough as I used to be. I had tried to avoid him, that was why I chose to stay in my tent all day. But when I realized that he was not around our campsite, it finally came out. It made me wonder where he had gone to, though. I do not think that he is quite familiar with these woods. I know that he could not get lost, but a part of me, despite my protest, worried for his well-being. I went into town. It was a bit far. I got a few things for us, he said. You did not have to, I replied. My voice came out harsher than usual. I do not expect it to sound so strong and almost rude. Well, we needed them. I wonder how the two of you survive with such little things, he said. I thought when in love object, he added. I frowned this time, and this time I meant to. I am not your generation kind of woman. I have raised Fia to not be as well. We have been surviving quite fine, as you can see, I said, tilting my head a little bit to get some view of his figure. I was only trying to help, he responded. His voice almost sounded frustrated. You shouldn't have. We do not need your help. I told you not to come with me, but you would not listen. You do not fit into my life, I stated coldly. I expected a response from him immediately. Instead, he remained silent. After a few seconds, he took long strides from where I stood to where I was seated on a mat on the ground. He stood in front of me, and I lifted my head up to get a good view of his face. There was a frown on his face. He ran his fingers through his head and released a lengthy sigh. You might think that I should not to be in your life, but you are wrong. You are a priestess. I am surprised that you cannot see that this thing between us is real. Forget about who you are and just be open to the possibility, he stated. I scoff. I have lived hundreds of years, and you have barely reached half a century, and you think you have knowledge of things. For an old woman, you are thinking shallow right now, he cut me off. My eyes widened in shock by his statement. I wanted to say something back, but he crouched down to my level for us to see each other. Eye to eye. His captivating blue orbs pierced into mine, and I knew for certain that I was holding my breath. He was so close to me that with just one quick move his lips would touch mine. He surprised me when I feel his right hand fingers run across my face. I feel the electricity created by the so-called bond between us run through every part of my body that I shivered. Tell me you do not feel it, he said in a very coarse but enticing voice, his eyes never leaving mine. I have never been this close to any man, and I never thought I would. I started, but I stopped when his fingers moved to my neck, causing the intensity of the electrifying feeling running through my body rose sky high. Speak. Tell me that this is all fake. This feeling that we are both having right now is the doing of some witch out there, he said with the same tone as earlier in his voice. Was Reed trying to seduce me? Or was this all a dream like the one I had when I was by the lake? You cannot seduce me into falling for this trap, I said as firmly as I could try to. I am not seducing you, priestess. I am barely doing nothing, he responded back. Then what are you really doing? I asked, lifting my chin up a little bit. Nothing, he answered. His fingers came back to my face, and he inched a little bit closer, that I with just 1 or 2 more inches his lips would be on mine. I held my breath. Then I feel it for the first time in my entire existence. The torn between the desire to lean in and the instinct to push him away. Every fiber of my being yearned for his touch, his kiss, but I couldn't let myself succumb to it. I couldn't let myself be swayed by this intense connection we shared. The witch behind this would win. She would find a way to use this bond against me. With a sudden surge of determination, I pulled away from his touch and stood up, putting some distance between us. No, I said firmly, my voice filled with a mix of longing and resolve. This can't happen. I cannot let myself be consumed by this and fall prey to this strange bond. Reed stood up as well. his expression a mixture of frustration and surprisingly understanding. "I understand your hesitation," he said, his voice tinged with disappointment. "But I can't deny what I feel. What we both feel even if you deny it. There is something powerful between us, and I do not believe that it is some which that is responsible." I shook my head, trying to gather my thoughts amidst the whirlwind of emotions. As a priestess and a werewolf, I am not destined for this kind of bond, and I have dedicated my life to serving a higher purpose, I explained, my voice tinged with sadness, though I did not want it to. But it was devastating. Why would someone want to put me through this? I can't afford to let this unknown desires cloud my reasoning just because you want it to be so. Reed stepped closer, his eyes pleading. But what if this connection is from the moon goddess? What if she is giving you an opportunity to be happy? Would you not reject that later on? It is not. You should leave now, Reed. I want to be alone, I replied. This was too fast despite the bond pushing us together. This affection was too fast. Was Reed the kind of man that fell in love at first sight? Reed hesitated for a bit, but he held himself back. He nodded, a mixture of sadness and acceptance in his eyes. "I'll give you the space you crave so badly for," he said, his voice filled with a bittersweet tone. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing at the edge of the cliff. It was difficult for me to sleep that night. I tossed and turned and tried to contact the moon goddess, but she was silent. I was not yet strong enough to connect to the earth to ask for questions. I am not aware of when the darkness consumes me. I find myself standing in the heart of a hauntingly dark forest, its dense canopy blocking out any trace of light. As I take a step forward, my body suddenly freezes, and a sense of dread washes over me. Looking down, I discover that I am not standing at all. Instead, I am lying on the ground, my limbs bound by heavy chains that snake their way around me. This place was the exact place in the vision I had when I touched the plagued wolf. I realized that this was not a dream and I have been sucked into this realm. I had to get out now. I was not strong enough to fight those ghastly creatures. I barely survived the last time. What was the meaning of this? Panic pulses through my veins as I struggle against the restraints, but the chains held me so tightly. I am trapped, helpless and vulnerable in this nightmarish realm. The forest itself seems to come alive, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, as if eager to keep me confined in this prison. But why? Who was trying to keep me here? I had no connection with the female plagued wolf. I simply could not understand anything. A chill wind whispers through the trees, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. Shadows dance and writhe, distorting reality and playing tricks upon my senses. Fear creeps into every corner of my mind as I realize I am not alone. A ghastly creature just like in the first one appears, but this time it felt worse. Its form was obscured by the dankness of this place, and it was racing towards me with an inhuman speed. The creature emanates an aura of malevolence, and as it draws near, a sickening sensation washes over me. I feel a draining of something deep within me. It is my magic, my atspy, my sated mate. Lights flashed around me and my wounds spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing, being mercilessly sucked away. I try to summon my powers, to fight back, but I am rendered powerless. My magic were still locked up because of the last time. Desperation takes hold as I struggle to break free from the chains that bind me. Every movement is met with resistance, the clinking of metal serving as a cruel reminder of my captivity. I can feel my strength fading, my spirit dimming as the creature continues its relentless onslaught, feeding off my magic. Who are you? I screamed at the creature. The creature screamed back, sounding 10 times worse than a banshee that I feel like my head was going to explode. The creature finally descended upon me, its soulless eyes piercing into mine. I had expected more of the ghastly creature to appear just like the last time, but they do not come, but this one keeps hovering over me. I will find you, whoever you are, I said with boldness. I may be weak right now, but I am a priestess. I am stronger than this creature. Face me properly, you vile creature, I scowl. The creature screams again and much louder than ever. My eyes roll to the back and it almost feels like my life source is getting sucked out of me. I hear chanting in the background, but I could not make out the words. What sort of magic was this? How did I not know of this kind of magic? I am choking and wheezing. My lungs feel compressed. I am gasping for air. Was I dying? Was there another way to die apart from the dagger? Was this how it felt when people die? Was it always this painful in all case? Read. The magic would be broken and he would move on. Find his true mate. Maybe I should have at least kissed him. It would have been my first. What about Thea? Would she be able to survive without me? Would she have a normal life? My eyes feels droopy and I am slipping into another slumber in my sleep, only this time I feel it might be permanent. The witch has won and I am nothing. I welcome the slumber, and just when my eyes were finally about to close, I hear it. Max by my fainted Nate. Light splashed around me and my wounds spun with the beat of the heavy techno music the DJ was playing. Althea. It was Reed's voice that sounded desperate and panicky, but it brought a certain strength to my body, and his voice was just enough to pull me out, and it felt like I was submerged underwater, and I now finally reached the surface and I was desperately begging for air to fuel my lungs. Althea. Althea. Are okay? Reed asked, his voice with anguish and helplessness. Mistress. Thea cried, her lips quivering against each other. My eyes flickered back and forth between them while I still tried to calm my breath. When I feel calm a little bit, I finally realized the state I was in. My cloth were all tattered. I was practically half naked and the ruined cloth on my body smelt burnt when I finally take hold of my surroundings. My tent was destroyed and almost reduced to nothing, like it had been set ablaze. What happened? That was all I could form from my mouth when I was calm enough to breathe properly. Stay tuned for more Werewolf Witch adventures. Subscribe.